Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the greatest superhero comic book podcast. I am your host, Joshua Murr-VELL, today, and as always, I'm joined by the real host, really, of the show, Mike-EL, who is unfortunately under the weather today, so he's just going to kind of comment when he can because he's lost his voice a bit.
Yeah, perfect time to do a podcast. Sorry, guys. I hope you can stomach listening to my voice. I won't talk that much. I'll just throw some periodic comments in.
Perfect. And today we're also joined by Adam Peltier. It's always great to have you back.
Thank you, Josh. It's always good to be back here. I'm very glad to have our special guest host, Grandpa Simpson, with us as well. So, sorry, Mike, I have to throw something in there.
No problem. I can take it.
And I want to say this is kind of full circle because I believe, if not the last time, the previous time I was on here, I was involved in a story that had Shining Knight. I think I just spoiled it. But yes, I believe I was.
Which one was that?
I believe it was, it was so riveting. It's just coming back to me right now. I think it was Our Man.
Was he really in that? I'm trying to remember.
I don't remember that. I
believe in a Silver Age comic that we covered, he was one of the ancillary characters. But yeah, that was it. But anyway,
it was like the first like big crossover where all of the characters were all together?
There was Hitler on a TV, robots and time travel. That's all I really remember.
Okay. Unfortunately, I don't even think that narrows it down for our podcast.
Exactly. Right.
But yeah, today we are going to be taking a look at some of the first appearances of Shining Knight, or I guess the two main origin stories for this character. Right. I guess we'll just jump in. I'll start recapping the first issue, his first appearance, which is Adventure Comics number 66. And it's a pretty straightforward, kind of fun little story. We start off with a flash forward almost, where we see this knight in golden armor riding a Pegasus, stopping some bad guys. And we're kind of like, whoa, what the heck is going on here? Why is this medieval knight in modern day New York or modern day America? And we flash back now to the Knights of the Round Tables. This is like 500 BC, right?
No.
Or no, AD.
AD.
And we're introduced to Sir Justin, as he's kind of sent on this mission to go stop this giant in the Frostlands. So he's off, and on his way there, he finds some bandits that he stops, and he chases them down, and it leads him through this forest. And while in the forest, he actually stabs a tree, and it talks to him. He's like, what the heck is going on? And it turns out that he's freed this wizard named Merlin from this tree. He was trapped there by some evil witch. So as a reward, or as like a thank you for freeing him, he creates these gold impenetrable set of armor for him and his Pegasus. And they go off on their adventure again, and they start fighting this giant, and they do win, but while slaying this thing, they get knocked off of a cliff, and they fall down the side of this like snow cap and end up trapped in some ice. And Captain America style get frozen in this ice cap, and they are stuck in this ice cap until present day 1950s, right?
No,
40s?
42, okay. I think.
So we see this man. He's confused. There's this ice cap coming towards him. He thinks he sees something in there, and the ice cap explodes. And Sir, what's his name? Justin. Sir Justin, and his horse ride to land, and this guy ends up helping them out. Him and his horse jump into the car in the most ridiculous panel I've seen in a while.
Or the best panel you've
yeah,
seen.
It's very good. They drive over to the museum. They thaw him out completely. They kind of give him, he kind of gives him some clothes and some, almost like a new identity. He introduces him to the museum and the like knights, the medieval round table exhibit that's going on. And that he even shows him the crown of King Arthur. So he kind of now believes that he is in present day. And we're getting some like, we also get a little bit of like fish out of water shenanigans here. We're also introduced to the daughter of this billionaire who is like helping fund this museum. So she kind of like comes in and they're smitten with each other. So we get a little bit of like a hint of maybe a budding romance. All while some thieves are sneaking into this museum, and Sir Justin dons his golden armor once again to stop them. They shoot at him, but they obviously do not succeed with his bulletproof armor. So they run away into the car, and he jumps onto his Pegasus, and he starts jousting with the car in a really fun scene here. And then after stopping them, they start running away from the car, and he kind of just like pins them all up with his joust and kind of skewers them to a telephone pole. And we're kind of left with a promise of more hijinks with him as a modern day knight in shining armor. And this was actually pretty fun. Like, I really enjoyed this.
I agree.
Very pulpy, very like campy, but extremely entertaining. I didn't feel like there was any fluff in the story. Like, everything had a very like had an important purpose in the story, which is kind of rare, I think, for a lot of these action comics. Their origins are very kind of just like, I don't know, let's come up with a superhero and we'll come up with some BS story for them just to get the ball rolling. This felt very thought out, and maybe the strongest origin we've seen in a while. Like even Superman, I feel like the origin was pretty good for Superman, but I think it's also been refined, and our memory of it is way stronger than the actual origin in the first comic, right?
Sure.
This one, felt very well-rounded, and I quite enjoyed it.
Well, I just want to say, you mentioned Captain America. There's also a little bit of Thor, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like sort of a mythical figure in contemporary times. With Captain America, you have the Frozen in Ice, this is before Captain America.
Mm-hmm.
Just 1 year after, I just want to say, but before the whole Frozen in Ice being thought out into the modern era, just to clarify,
Yeah, so this is actually a very cool premise for a superhero, and I'm interested in this character. It's a great concept.
Even introducing the indestructible armor. Like that also kind of has this feel to it. The fish out of water. Like, there's a lot of stuff that really works. Even like the museum stuff, the fact that he's working in a museum, and then even in like the MCU stuff, I'm not sure if that's a big thing in the comics, but they definitely take him like walking through a museum and looking at World War II exhibits and seeing his like old Howling Commando squad on these like, posters and screens and stuff. Yeah, it's pretty interesting that maybe some modern day Captain America took inspiration from this.
And it's coming from such an interesting source too, because not only do we have those sort of analogies with Captain America and Thor preceding the actual publication of those storylines and that character in case of Thor, but we also have such a very interesting supporting cast, because you have the professor that's discovered him. So you kind of have the wise mentor who's trying to ingratiate him back into this world that he was estranged from for so long. You have the love interest, or a potential love interest. So you have a very rich cast, which you can already see is going to lead towards all sorts of storytelling directions, in addition to, as you say, the fish out of water trope. which at this point, I don't really know if it was as much a trope within the comics medium. I think certainly by the time the 60s came along, we brought up Captain America and Thor as big figures in that sort of storytelling, but Shining Knight might be one of the earliest cases of that. The only other one I can think of is perhaps Martian Manhunter, and even then, those stories tended not to be so much fish out of water or contain any sort of commentary about having someone who was ill-equipped with the social graces to get by in the modern era. It was just kind of, well, I'm an alien, and that's it. You don't even really have that with Superman, because he was raised and adapted to society of Earth. This is pretty unique in that way. You know, in addition to the story, and the story is very fascinating, the characters really well put together for potential storytelling, I appreciated the art, because I do agree.
Yeah.
Sometimes it can be a little bit rough, or it could feel like, because there was so much product coming out at the time, sometimes it feels a bit unrefined, or at times it can feel a little bit cluttered. Here, everything was dynamic. There was great detail, great use of color. I actually really loved how dynamic the pacing was. And God, anytime you have a horse in a car being driven around, you get my 10-star rating for any comic, okay?
I agree. The art is surprisingly good. And this artist actually drew a lot of pre-Batman Detective Comics covers, as well as the original unused cover for Action Comics #1. So he's definitely beyond this. He's a very important artist from the Golden Age, for sure.
Yeah.
One thing I do want to bring up. Oh, sorry.
No, I was just getting kind of like echoing. Yeah, the art was very good in this issue for sure.
I'm just wondering, from both of your perspectives, when we had superheroes coming out in the 1940s, there was a lot of reactions to the rapid acceleration of technology. So you certainly had like a succession of like supernatural or mystically powered heroes kind of fighting against that tide of, I think, people feeling overwhelmed by burgeoning technology, or you had people who were kind of like the proto-Marvel victims of hyper technology. It's like superhero and horror comics. Do you think Shining Knight speaks to that at all? Because to me, having a chivalrous, moral character coming into this corrupt modern day, I don't want to say that it has more depth than it does, but it certainly, I think, has some sort of pause for a type of social commentary, I guess.
I don't know.
On that?
I don't really know. I mean, it could be accidental. I don't know if it was intentional, but it could be.
Yeah, I feel like maybe for the time too, that definitely makes sense, because I feel like if this was adapted today, it would feel almost like they would change it where he would be more barbaric and not up to today's, society and the beliefs of today, where this kind of feels like he is kind of like above how like modern society at the time would be. So yeah, I didn't really catch on to that until you brought it up, but definitely could be. I definitely would not put it past the writers. It definitely feels like this was thought out more, this origin,
absolutely.
for sure. I also love here, like, speaking of thought out, I don't know, just this small detail of Merlin knowing the future and knowing that he's going to need like a bulletproof armor is very interesting. And it's just this small detail that like really works for the comic and really kind of it just feels like everything has a place, like everything works.
I agree.
Here. So,
and also I love Arthurian mythology. So tying it to King Arthur, the Knights of the Round Table, Merlin, absolutely love that. I like the introduction of the love interest, the woman. She seems like an interesting character that might end up being, might be more fleshed out as the series goes on. So yeah, definitely a good setup for a series.
Yeah, and they've kind of introduced her as this character that could know about the past and because she's tied to the museum already. It feels like she could even like be a part of the story and not just another subplot for the main character. So I'm hoping that is the case, because I think I do want to read more of these. Like, this was really interesting. I don't know about you guys, but this is something.
I would.
Yeah.
I hope we can find better scans. This was a very low quality scan, but there, as far as I know, there has not been an archives edition yet. So we really need DC to put one out.
Yeah.
And I don't think there was a huge solo series for him either. In fact, I think he mainly appeared as a team member for different groups such as All-Star Squadron, which I believe was the comic that we had read previously featuring him, which is a shame because I feel like there's so much great storytelling. But at the same time, I think the format of these Golden Age books definitely played to it. You know, having a shorter format, having this sort of condensed anthology style story, being able to tell these quick one-offs. I think a character like this is ideal for that format. You know, just jumping ahead a little bit, I do want to mention that my introduction to this character, and I think we all touched upon this somewhat, or at least I know Josh and myself probably did. The introduction for Shining Knight for me was for the Justice League Unlimited animated series,
Right.
Where he was just this very out of nowhere character appearing along with Vigilante, I believe. So you had a cowboy and then a knight riding a horse with wings. And of course, I'm like, what the heck is this?
Right.
I mean, which is also funny how fickle comic book fans can be. We can, you know, of course, go with somebody with a ring that controls matter and a man dressed as that. When you bring me a knight with a wing with horse with wings, it's like no,
outrageous.
Yeah. But no, his character design, which I don't think we touched upon, so
No,
simple,
yeah.
but it works great. The golden armor, the bullet helmet with the red sort of drape over his midsection, so you have this great balance. His look is very simple and yet effective.
Agree. It's great. Yeah, he's a good character.
Yeah.
And so he lasted about 100 issues in Adventure Comics until his strip was canceled, and then he kind of disappeared until the Seven Soldiers of Victory were brought back in the Justice League. But the Shining Knight himself was a very obscure character, and he was not revived until Grant Morrison brought him back.
And that is the next issue that we're going to be talking about today.
Seven Soldiers, Shining Knight.
Right. Adam, did you want to jump in and recap this one? I feel like it's a pretty quick, easy.
Oh, just before I do,
sure.
I didn't see anything on the insignia or the logo. Was this preceding or after the new 52?
Preceding. This was 2005. The new 52 was 2011.
Okay, very interesting because I am getting some new 52 vibes from it, but I'll do my best to recap this. So what we should mention, just from the cover alone, there's a radical redesign of the Shining Knight costume. Gone is the bullet helmet. Gone is the simple arrangement of the chainmail golden armor and the red cloth piece over his torso. Now that's a more intricate, almost like insectoid style piece of armor with, like I said, an insectoid style helmet with these sort of prongs coming up like mandibles. You can tell this is the mid 2000s. Things are a bit edgier. There's a heavy inking on here. And we're about to find out that this is not actually Sir Justin, but a kind of analogous, slightly different Shining Knight. But anyway, getting into this, I'm going to do my best to present a cohesive synopsis. This is a Grant Morrison book, so I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to do that. But with that said, we basically are thrown into a battle for the last day of Camelot. So we are confronted with an unstoppable army of these pale-skinned, vampiric-looking fairies. They are battling the Knights of the Round Table in this sort of montage sequence where we find out King Arthur is dead, and the remaining knights of what is called the Broken Table are facing this fight they cannot win. What's very interesting is that these vampiric fairies come equipped with what looks like futuristic weaponry. It looks like they have lasers, flying apparati. It's not at all like ancient mythological weaponry. There's this great disparity between the anachronistic and the futuristic, which is a very neat touch. I do appreciate that. So, of these Knights of the Broken Table, there is, of course, a name check of all the famous knights,
Right.
Including Lancelot, who rallies the warriors, and they charge forward, but only to meet their death, particularly by Ni-Ba-Lo, whose name is phonetically spelled out for me, thank goodness. It is the huntsman of Sheeta. Whatever that is, we'll find out enough. Either way, Ni-Ba-Lo fatally wounds Lancelot. While the knight refuses to surrender, he's urging his compatriots to fight on. The battle continues, and then it eventually leads to Castle Revolving, which is kind of the flagship of the fairies. So what's interesting is that this castle is not really a castle necessarily, but it's kind of like a mixture of a monolithic structure and a spacecraft.
Yeah.
I'm getting some very Geiger-esque sort of images from this. So anyway, we have then...
I just caught that. Alien.
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
And then we're getting actually our character, the Golden Knight, or the Shining Knight in this case. I'm calling them golden because they're decked out in this very golden, like I said, insectoid armor. It's almost a combination here of like an MCU Asgardian look mixed with something from Borg Adventures is maybe the best thing I can come up with.
Yeah.
So this character, as I said, is not Justin. I hope I'm going to say this right. They're titled as Easton.
It's actually Ustinia.
Ostinia.
Ustinia, yeah.
Well, Mike, thank you for that, because there is no way I would have ever gathered that.
Yeah.
So
No problem.
Ustinia, who is a schoolboy of Avalon, we'll touch upon that in a little bit, and their winged steed, Vanguard, sneak into the defenses, and armed with what is called a true lantern, they proceed there, weaken this zombie horde of what appears to be the fallen soldiers of the Knights of the Broken Table. Anyway, they battle through this horde of the undead, continuing on until they see the Cauldron of Rebirth. I feel like I'm playing a Dungeons and Dragons game right now.
Yeah.
Please forgive me. Roll 12-sided. No. So anyway, eventually coming to this Cauldron of Rebirth, they help this will turn the tide against these vampiric invaders, but inside the cauldron, they fish out, Mike might have to correct me on this, Owlin.
Yeah, I think that's right. I don't know.
I'm going to give that
yeah.
Owlin.
Yeah, Owlin.
Who is apparently a light fairy or a positive fairy, one of the allies that has been captured by the Sheeta. And as we're learning, the Sheeta tends to be the kind of monolithic name given to this weird vampire fairy race. Anyway, the two are met by big boss energy in the form of Gloriana Tenebrea. I'm hoping I'm saying that right. I saw this character and I just referred to them as breasting boobily because it is a weird vampire, lots of cleavage, lots of like plunging necklines with some interesting, almost like, I guess you could say Lovecraftian tendrils forming from her head. Anyway, there is, of course, the usual back and forth you would expect. A battle ensues, and eventually what happens is he notices that she is wearing the Excalibur sword, even though she can't wield it because of the mythology around Arthurian legend. I don't think we need to get into that. It's very basic. King of England, Arthur is the only one who can wield Excalibur, but, more details to follow. Anyway, oh God, I'll just say main character grabs it from her and stabs her with it. So we have a clue that there might be something special about this shining knight, but she escapes by flowing into this kind of weird amorphous substance that the castle is made out of. Feeling like he finally has his reprieve, we have our Shining Knight help Alwyn up. But what a twist. It turns out Alwyn stabs Shining Knight, revealing herself to be a changeling, a type of shapeshifter. It was a trap. Well, bound to escape, Vanguard knocks over this changeling while our main character, Shining Knight, grabs hold, and they plunge through the cauldron. Or sorry, actually, I should say he throws the cauldron out a nearby window, and the two kind of fly out of the castle, also through this amorphous green goo shape. And out of nowhere, away from this like retro-futurist world that they were in, they fall into modern day New York, I guess I want to say. Oh, no, it's Los Angeles, pardon me. Yeah, sorry for all our loyal listeners in LA. Didn't mean to offend you there. But they go over LA and they plummet in the middle of the street where Shining Knight is arrested, is speaking in a language that can't be discerned. It's almost like a variant of Old English, which is a very clever thing. I have to say, I really appreciate that element that Morrison integrated into the story. Well, unfortunately, we see that Vanguard the horse lays apparently dead in the middle of the street. There's this great section where the cops are trying to ascertain what exactly is going on. So they put Shining Knight into the back of a police vehicle and drive off. One of the cops going, no wonder I have nightmares. These sickos are gluing things onto horses now, which is such a great touch. I love that. And that essentially ends the first issue. So yeah, there we have it. We have 7 soldiers, Shining Knight, a radically different revision of what this character was compared to what we saw, as you would imagine, by the one and only Grant Morrison. I feel like a lot's happening here. Yes.
It's a promising start to a story, and this is part 1 of 4. But it feels weaker than the first one. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that we really don't know anything about our main character. It's really kind of just a bit of a history lesson to get him, really push him through the portal to get him into modern day times. And yeah, I don't know. I don't love it. I was really hoping I would. I love the like futuristic past. It's very interesting. I think the designs are kind of fun, especially for this like edgy early 2000s time. I didn't dislike the art as much as I thought I would, because a lot of the times when they're trying to do futuristic stuff, it's way over designed. And I think a lot of the character design is kind of fun and creative. But I don't know. It didn't. It was a promising start. It wasn't a great book though.
For me, I actually did love it. Yeah. Pardon me. I think the writing is great. I think there's, as Grant Morrison does, there's a lot of hints at very big ideas that he just he's so full of ideas. These ideas are just dropped on the page, and then he moves on to the next thing so quickly. But like you have, what is it? The rotating castle? No,
the revolving castle. Yeah,
revolving castle. The talking horse with the best line of dialogue in the comic, which is, "Are you mad, Justin? I'm a horse. Whoever heard of a mad horse? This is a horse that talks." And he's being that sassy. I don't know. I just think that, again, it's very decompressed. It's 20 pages, and there's far less story there. But I think it's a great setup for a story. The character designs are incredible. I think the art is so good. Simone Bianchi, or however you pronounce it, just absolutely perfect art for this genre. So I've already read this once before, but I'm looking forward to rereading the whole series again. So I thought this was a great book.
For me, I'm going to have to go on the polar opposite in terms of the art. I actually didn't care for it that much. Mike, I think we've had these debates before. I'm not even sure if it's the art that I'm having an issue with or the very heavy inking that I see in a lot of it that might actually take away from a lot of the artistry happening here.
Sure.
And I know I'm comparing this to a Golden Age figure, but I do feel there is a certain discrepancy between how iconic, simple, and elegant the original Shining Knight armor and character design was compared to this, which feels, to me, a bit derivative. Like, I could name dozens of characters that have very similar designs. I'm thinking Magog from DC as well. I'm also thinking, I brought up Beetleborgs. There's Geigerist imagery. I'm not as much a fan of the imagery or character design, but as flippant as I can be about that, I do agree with you on terms of setting up and the story itself. I love this world it's setting up. It's kind of this alternative Arthurian world where we're not really given the full privilege to understand what exactly is happening. There is this futuristic vampiric alien race along with the traditional Knights of the Round Table, or in this case, the Broken Table. And there's a lot of intrigue. What has happened? What has usurped this type of history we're familiar with? Where is this alien, vampiric, supernatural race coming from? What exactly are they? What is their objective? And I apologize, Mike. I think it was Ustinia was the name of the character.
Yeah.
So this isn't really touched upon here, and I'm not sure if you were going to bring it up, but something I found very interesting was, as time went on, I think even preceding the New 52, this character was, I'm not sure if you would describe them as being gender neutral or maybe gender fluid, but there was like an androgynous element purposely done where I think they were biologically determined as being a female and then adopted like different gender roles as they grew to become a knight, which I thought was very fascinating. And especially with hindsight, not to read the autobiography of a creator into their created content, but with Grant Morrison, of course, coming out as being non-binary, I think this is pretty interesting, almost paralleling that track to have early on, like, great representation for a type of LGBTQA character in comics, which I'm sure all the bro dudes would be like, oh, geez, you're ruining everything right now. Why does everything have to be so woke? It's like, this was happening back in 2005. Come on.
Right. Agree.
I love that aspect of the character, and while that's not prominent in here, I'm very intrigued to see where this is going to go. In fact, I'm a little bit heartbroken to know it's only a mini series rather than a maxi series, because I would love to see how a full fleshed out world could be described with this character.
Sure.
Some grievances with the art, like I said, but otherwise, I really liked what I was reading here. And I think in terms of using kind of the base of Sir Justin and the original Shining Knight to tell a completely different and new story, you got to leave it to Grant Morrison. Like, honestly, you want anything revised in a completely radical, different way, you give it to Morrison. They're the person for it.
100%. And also, I got to say, to me, this feels like if this was a TV show, this would be the first act, like the first 10 minutes. And this cliffhanger with his horse, broken and bloodied on the street and him in the back of a police cruiser. What a great cliffhanger. I cannot wait to get back to it and read number 2. So to me, that's a sign of a successful comic. I really like this.
I feel like it's the great time for a commercial break. It's like, I have to go get some chips and come right back because I need to figure this out. Well, I've dated myself. Commercial breaks. Who watches commercials anymore?
Sure. Good point.
I gotta stream the next episode. But no, I like this, and I do think also, not to take this over too much, but having the horse die at the end, or at least seemingly die.
Right.
I don't know what exactly happens with Vanguard later on, but what a twist, especially if you're getting into this somewhat familiar with the Shining Knight character and suddenly seeing this association, this character that's always associated with Shining Knight, this horse, meet an end. It is one of those things where very declaratively the creators are stating, you don't know what you're in for. This is not, okay, this is so hackneyed to say, but this isn't your daddy's Shining Knight. This is a little bit different. Again, like, while I have some grievances over some of the visuals of it, I really like this. And I'm going to say this, of all the times I've come on here, this is probably the best set of comics I've read with you. This has been fantastic.
Well, I can only say that Grant Morrison is my second or first favorite comics writer. So this is absolutely, I mean, Josh, I know you said you didn't really like Shining Knight #1, but it's close to it's one of the best comics we've ever reviewed. I think
it's definitely piqued my interest to continue the story. I think more in the sense of it being not a complete story, right?
Sure.
So it being a part 1 of 4, I was like, okay,
Sure.
it is pretty good, and definitely piqued my interest, and I do want to read more of it.
Right.
So I probably will, because it was really fun.
Awesome.
So, and I do love this world that they're building up. Again, the designs of the characters and this world, and especially this ship, like this is really cool. So, yeah, I want to know more.
Josh, I'm going to eat my words for one thing.
Sure.
In spite of me complaining about some of the visuals, I love the design of this ship. It is amazing. Yeah,
it's really fun. It looks like futuristic and like organic and like a castle. It's really fun. And like, what is this like green goop that's also like crystallized that can transport to like another dimension? It's really fun. So
there's just so many ideas. That's what I mean. There's so many, like Grant Morrison has a book of every DC character, and on every page there's 1,000 ideas for every character, and whenever they're assigned a new comic, they just go back to the book and they go, here we go, here's all my Shining Knight ideas, ready to go. It's great. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. But anyway,
yeah, I don't know, do you guys have anything else to say before we wrap it up about this comic? I mean, I think both of these were really good. It's a character that I was not super familiar with before starting this podcast, but now I want more of the character. So that's kind of unusual. I feel like a lot of the times we already know the character and we're kind of seeing the origins, or they're kind of these ridiculous Hour Man-esque characters that are just, it's fun kind of to read the stories and to talk about them, but beyond that, there's not much substance there. So it's interesting to know too that this character hasn't really been picked up a whole lot and is not like a staple in DC Comics. So
we should mention that Shining Knight has appeared in the Stargirl TV show.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. So if you want more Shining Knight's there.
Okay, perfect.
So,
and it's more of the Sir Justin Shining Knight.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
As far as I know, I haven't seen it, but yes. So.
All right. Well, I think that pretty much wraps it up. So next episode of Slam, as Mike just pointed to here, is Star Spangled Kid and Stargirl.
Woo! Yeah.
Hold on one sec. There we go. Sorry, I just clicked off there. Thank you guys so much for listening to the podcast. You can find all of our stuff over on our website at thecomicbooksyndicate.com. We're also slowly, I say slowly, but I feel like all of our podcasts now are video podcasts. So you can also check all of our stuff out on our YouTube channel at thecomicbooksyndicate.com. Leave us a review. Comment on our stuff. Let us know what you guys think about the issues and the movies and the shows and things that we're talking about. We want to keep that comics conversation going. So thank you again, Mike. Sorry that you're feeling under the weather. And Adam, it's always a pleasure to have you on the podcast. And until next episode, we will see you guys later.